you might have noticed, patriotism has become something of a dirty word. Not so much amongst the normal Australians. They still love their country and love their people. But when we get to the elites, there seems to be this idea that we're a basket of deplorables, or whatever they want to call us. It's really been on the nose. As time has gone on, this has become really, it got worse and worse. I've always been very resilient to this, but there's something happened. It was a little story I want to share with you of why all this gaslighting, a lot of people have really taken it on board and said, yeah, you know, we really should be ashamed of ourselves. We should be ashamed of, we've did so many bad things. And I never took it. And there was a reason why. And it goes back to when I was a young kid. It was maybe, I'm guessing 8 or 9. I can't remember exactly. I have a bad memory for these things. And we had a dog. Love my dog still. And every day we used to walk the dog to the park. Our local park was called Dunham Park. And it's actually, it was a golf course. Now, previous to being a golf course, it was sort of a foresty, I think it was a bit overgrown, foresty area. And still a lot of it is forested. It's a very beautiful golf course, actually. It's very lovely. I used to go up there every day with my mum. Now, my mum had been quite badly affected by the war. I was 9 years old, the war broke out. They used to have German aeroplanes that come flying over the top and release bombs, and they come flying down with this big whistling sound. You've all seen the movies of the bombs. Bombs don't make that noise when they fall. They put a whistle deliberately in the tail to terrify people. And they used to, her mum and dad would get her up, you know, there'd be an air raid on, and they'd all go and hide under the kitchen table. She wasn't sure what the kitchen table was going to do for them, but they all hid under the kitchen table there. And she said you'd hear the bombs coming down, and there'd be this whistling sound. She said it sounded like it was coming for your house. And she said it'd be coming and coming and coming, and she'd be like, and then there'd be an explosion, and she'd be, this wave of relief. Oh my God, it didn't hit us. And then this would be followed by a wave of guilt, that she'd think, oh my God, someone else just got blown up, and here's me happy about it, you know. So she was pretty badly affected, and she used to talk about the war a lot, and you get all these stories. In those days, there was a lot of stories of some of you be old enough to remember the Colditz and the Great Escape and all these kind of things of British prisoners in German prisoner of war camps being quite badly treated. I'm not quite sure how much of that was propaganda, but I think there were, not all of it. You know, but the British people were under the belief that, you know, they'd been badly treated, and certainly when I was young, we had this impression, Hollywood movies and things like that the British had been badly treated in the German camps. And so we're walking up to Dunham Park with the dog one day, and my mum starts talking about when the German prisoners were there, and they'd built a castle out of rocks and boulders. It was like a replica of a Bavarian castle. And I was like, hang on a sec, back up here. German prisoners? Dunham Park? Oh yeah, Dunham Park was a prisoner of war camp. I was like, what? Well, we take the dog. She was like, yeah, it was a prisoner of war camp. I said, well, weren't you scared? You know, I mean, these guys could have climbed over the fence, or, you know, come out and cut your throat in the night. She said, climb over the fence. There was barely a fence there. There'd be the wire around. Why would they escape? She said, they didn't want to escape. I said, why not? She said, well, they were really well treated. They were all, you know, looked after, well fed. They didn't want to go back to the war. And I was like, wait, hang on. I said, what? We were treating their prisoners really well. She said, yeah. I said, well, weren't they treating our prisoners really badly? She said, yeah. I said, well, why were we treating their prisoners well? You know, why weren't we just bashing them around a bit or whatever? And she said, well, that's how we knew we were the good guys. And I was like, hang on a second, no, that's not right. We should have been, you know, we should have been treating them badly, like they. And then I thought, hang on, this is my people. That they actually, you know, although they believed that the Germans were treating our prisoners badly, they said, no, we're going to treat their prisoners well. You know, we don't care. That's who we are. And I just found that amazing, that my people, that whole group of people could all collectively feel that way. So when people tell me that, hey, your ancestors are a real bunch of bad dudes, I give them pretty short shrift. But today, 2024, this is where we are, and our kids are being taught in school to be ashamed of our history. We've got movies like Rabbit Proof Fence. I don't know if any of your kids at school, they all have to watch this. I'm not an expert on that, but I believe that it's not really quite what they make it out to be. And that's not the worst of it, I believe. You know, by the time they're getting into university, the whole colonialism and the stale male pale, you've all heard this stuff. You know how it goes on. But why are they doing this? Why are we there? And it seems to me that at the same time that we've been getting all this gaslighting for our people and our history and our patriotism, that we've been losing the country to mass immigration. And part of the argument for why we need to have mass immigration is because we don't deserve to keep our country, because of all the evil things we've done and the bad things we've done to all these other people. We're getting our statues torn down, they're pushing the narrative that we're morally bankrupt, and there's all these sins, and wherever you go, there's always a sin. It's like in Australia, it's the Aboriginals. If you go to New Zealand, it's the Maoris. If you go to England, it's colonialism. If you go to America, it's slavery. Even Ireland, I mean, they've come up with this one in Ireland. Oh, well, you guys emigrated all over the world, so, hey, we've got the right to come to your country, right? I mean, where do they get off with this stuff? Why is it that other ethnic groups are allowed to keep their nations, but we're not? And this is the question. It's like, were they so much better than we were? Two of our biggest sources of migration are China and India at the moment, as you might have noticed, especially if you live in Sunnybank or and a few other places. When I was younger, they had something called the Cultural Revolution in China, where they managed to off around, who knows how many, but the estimates from 40 million, I think they go up to about 70 million people died. And the current Chinese government said that they were about 70% right. I'm glad they weren't 10% right. God knows how many would have died. And if 40 million starved to death, how many people almost starved to death? Environmentalism, it's like a religion these days. The left and all these people who are criticizing our people are demanding this fealty to the planet and the environment and environmentalism. In 2002, I was working at Toronto North Power Station, building a power station, not alone. I was one of a number of people. Since that time, Australia's built 3 coal-fired power stations, and we've demolished 3. Last week, China commissioned 2 new coal-fired power stations. The week before, they commissioned 2 new coal-fired power stations. The week before, they commissioned 2 new coal-fired power stations, and on and on. China burns more coal than the rest of the world combined. But there's no pushback against China. They can keep their country. You might have heard of rare earth minerals spoken about. China is one of the biggest producers of rare earth minerals. The reason for that is not that China happens to be blessed with a lot of rare earth minerals. The reason is that digging up rare earth minerals is horrendous for the environment. It's terribly environmentally destructive, and no one else wants to do it. China, not so much. And then there's India. The Indians are entitled to have their own country. They're such a good people, they always were. When the English rapaciously invaded India and took over, they imposed some of their own rules and laws, of course, as the conquerors generally do. And they told the Indians that, I'm sorry guys, but you can no longer burn your widow on your funeral pyre when you go, okay? Even if it's in your will. So they came to the commander-in-chief of India, was a gentleman called Sir Charles Napier, and said, look, this is our custom. We've always done this. When we die, we put our widow on the funeral pyre and, set fire and she burns up with you. And he said, okay. He said, you say that it's your custom to burn widows. Very well. We also have a custom. When men burn a woman alive, We tie a rope around their necks and we hang them. Build your funeral pyre. Beside it, my carpenters will build the gallows. You may follow your custom, and then we will follow ours. There wasn't too much argument after that. Would that we could have some of that clarity, moral clarity today, okay? Now, I'm not blaming Indians for the sins of their fathers, but why are they entitled to a homeland, but we aren't? And if any of you, as I mentioned before, if any of you, and probably I doubt that any of you have, but if any of you ever tried to get citizenship in India, good luck, because I believe you have to be fluent in 2 or 3 Indian languages before they'll even consider you. There's not too many long-term migrants into India. The Rwandans, in Rwanda, most of you remember the time when they hacked 500,000 of their co-nationists to death with machetes. It takes a few people to hack 500,000 people to death with machetes, but no one says they're not allowed to own their own country. 85% of our migration today comes from Asia, the Middle East, and Africa. Now, not all, but many of these areas are high crime societies. They have high levels of corruption, and a great deal of things that we are just not compatible, really, with the kind of modern, high-trust, civilized society that Australians built. We've been swamped with non-white immigration since we've lost the White Australia policy, and it's driving us towards minority status at an accelerating rate. Someone claimed today that they reworked the census figures in New Zealand, and they drilled down a little bit, and they found that the government, surprise, surprise, had massaged the figures a little bit to make them look better. But they found that white Kiwis are now around 55% of the population, down from 82% in the 1990s. Our birth rate is below replacement rate, so 2.1 children, 1 for mum, 1 for dad, and 1 for the unfortunate accidents or whatever. If you're below that, your population is dropping and eventually will disappear. Meanwhile, we've got huge levels of immigration. Now, if that's not replacement, then I don't know what is. Crime's up, social cohesion's down, house prices are through the roof. So why have Conservatives failed to stop this, and why do they keep losing? John Howard, a big favourite of a lot of Conservatives, what was he said? We will decide who comes here. I think what he meant was, I will decide who comes here. And he decided an awful lot of Chinese were going to come here. You know, a lot of people didn't realise it, but while he was putting the big show on, keeping people off the Tampa, he was opening the door to millions upon millions of people coming in from other countries. So why did we lose? Why did we lose? So back in the 1960s, multiculturalists were a tiny number of people. They were a tiny proportion of the population. But they won. The White Australia was a hugely popular policy, but this tiny number of people turned it over, turned it on its head and said, no, we're going to abolish that. How did they do it? Both parties supported mass migration, and we were never asked. Still, how did they do it? And the answer really is because the migrants, or not so much the migrants, but the pro-multiculturalists were playing as a team. Because most of us were a famously individualistic society. Since maybe the 1300s, I think it was, that one of the popes declared first cousin marriage as was illegal. And from that time on, we sort of spread our wings a bit, and this tribalism was taken away. We worked in towards nation states. We replaced our tribes with nation states. Not entirely. We invented football as well, of course, because we all like our little tribal things, you know. But that tribalism is very low amongst Anglos, whereas the people coming in and the people who wanted the multiculturalism tended to work as a group. And when you have a large group of people, and most of them were working as individuals, but a small number are working as a group to achieve a group interest, the group will always win. And there's a quote from Warren Buffett. You might have heard of the famous investor Warren Buffett. His letters to shareholders were excellent to read. And he said one time, if you're playing cards and you can't figure out who the patsy is, it's you. If you're in a card game and everyone's playing you're playing as an individual, or a few of you are playing an individual, and there's a group of people who are working together with little winks of the eye and whatever, and they're working as a team, they will win. With the people who are working as individuals, they will lose. And this is what's happened, and this is the whole basis of multiculturalism, is small groups coming in and saying, no, we want to retain our ethnic identity. We want to work for our interests and our group and look after our people and defend our interests, our group interests, not our individual interests or the interests of the entirety of Australia, we might say, but we just want to look after our group. And those groups are so powerful, they can do so much within, because they're fighting against individuals, and the individuals stand up and immediately get swamped. They pick them off one by one, and they make an example. They destroy people. People stand up, especially in places like universities, in politics. Someone stands up and says, hey, I'll be brave, and these people jump on them like a bunch of seagulls on a chip. Because they've played as a team and used this identity politics, they've been so successful. And what the Conservative response has been, people like Andrew Bolt and to an extent people like John Howard have come out and said, here's my strategy. I'm going to ask these people to stop doing this. Okay, I'm going to tell them, hey guys, stop playing this winning strategy and just meld in with the rest of us and just be an individual. Go and grab a beer, come down the beach, go to the barbecue, and stop playing these group games. You know, stop trying to take over our country and get what you want, and start just being part of us. And guess what? They don't. Of course, you know. It's a losing tactic. The nation itself has been hostage to these individual groups, and what do they usually want? More immigration for my people, or my people, or my people. So each of these groups, so strangely enough, India and China get the most immigration. If you look at the figures, these are the two countries that make up the biggest numbers of immigration because they've got more power in that area. And this is how it works. The problem is that a successful nation is not like a train station with people just coming through and, okay, I'm going to stay for a while and I'm going to jet off and I've got a better job in New York or Singapore or wherever. A successful nation is made of people who have a common bond. And there's nothing that bonds people like a sense of shared heritage. And that's why the British and Australian community is here to represent people who have this sense of shared heritage. And sometimes you might not. You know, you might have people here might be Italian descended or Greek descended from a couple of generations ago, but they've assimilated in, and you drop them in the high street of Dubbo and no one's going to notice. No one would say, oh, this guy's not an Aussie. He's an Aussie. I mean, he might have a funny surname, but he drinks beer and goes down the pub with the rest of us or goes to the barbie. We need to have a group to represent this group, the group of people who are the Anglo-descended and those who've assimilated into that culture. And that is what the British Australian community is. Up till now, we've been defenceless. So unlike other ethnic groups, apart from us, who represents you? If we look at the other groups, they have, and by the way, that's not an exhaustive, this is the tiny, we just picked out a few, like the Islamic community has hundreds of groups to represent it. There's other ethno-religious groups also have hundreds of groups. There's, these are just a tiny, there are peak bodies for whole sections. There's a peak bodies for the African groups and so forth. They have all these different groups. So who are we? So we were founded, the British Australian community was founded in 1967 as the UK Settlers Association. We're here to help the £10 Poms as they came in. I mean, they had a travel agency, they had they used to put on dances, they used to help people find jobs, network, this kind of thing, and assimilate in. In 1995, it was renamed to the British Australian Community, and it began to increasingly advocate for the benefit of the Anglo population, but was very, very small, quite tiny. Now, in 2020, we rebooted with new people, which was the people who have been organising this. We came in around 2020 and began, I'd like to say, putting it on steroids or turbocharging it. We do our best, you know. We gave it a boost up. There was a good team came in. It's a fantastic team, actually. I'll talk about that a little bit later. And so that's who we are. So what we do, we represent the interests of Anglo-Celtic Australians. We promote those interests of shared identity and our shared interests. We defend our community against attacks. What you might have noticed when someone cuts down a statue of Captain Cook and scrawls, "The colony will fall" on it, that who stands up and complains about it? Almost no one. Well, we do to the best of our ability. We're still small, and we can only do so much. You can't. I think Winston Churchill says, if you stop and deal with every dog that barks, you'll never get anywhere. But we do our best, and we connect. We try to bring people together as we have tonight. And this is just looking around and seeing how many people are coming in, and this group of people. This is what we're really aiming for. Like, we're hoping that, you know, within a couple of years we might have thousands of people. I'll be terrified, by the way. We create content. So you might have noticed, some of you have hooked up onto this new thing called the internet, and you see videos. We put out videos now. These are rather old figures. We started putting this together, and we have a lot to do. So updating these slides has not been always quite the priority. Maybe it should have been. We had a video just went viral before, and I think there's over 1 million views, which was from an interview that we did between Frank, who you met, and our good friend Eric Lowe. I think that's the correct way to tell it. Cut some shorts out of that and put it. You know, we had put it on various platforms, including TikTok. One of the shorts is at 750,000-ish, 850,000. In the comments, we've apparently got a huge firestorm between Bantus and Khoisan and all these different African tribal groups, all going onto the BAC's TikTok account and having a look at these things and leaving comments. We haven't got too many new members from that, but it's nice to have such a following. We've done a number of other videos, which some of you are probably aware of. So we've done some good ones. We do research and advocacy where we can. There's so much to do. There's so many attacks on our community. We just don't have the resources. But there was a particularly disgusting book called the Black Cookbook, which was it was put into the Melbourne libraries or something. I can't remember the exact details, but it was put in there, and there was all this disgusting stuff about white people being these marauding savages that came in and just did awful things. So the Lord Mayor had sort of put it in. So we complained to the Victorian Equal Opportunity and Human Rights Commission with a case that was just watertight. And as you can imagine, we haven't heard a peep back from there. It's just crickets, of course. But this is how you start. This is what ethnic defence agencies do. So this is what we're doing as best we can, and we're getting better all the time. Now, as you probably are very aware, we also write books. Myself and Frank wrote Anglophobia. Frank wrote a short book around the voice. The voice referendum was very successful for the No campaign. We did it very well, but it was really run from a civic nationalist, Andrew Bolt type perspective that we spoke about before. That, let's not be racist, and let's all be together, and let's join together and sing songs together. We take a slightly different view that, okay, you're bringing in this thing called the voice. What's in it for us? Why is this good from our position? And of course it's not. I don't think it was good for anyone's position apart from the bureaucrats who were desperate to get their snouts in the trough. But Frank put together a book-length rebuttal from the point of view of Anglos. And one of the points that he made was that in all of this process, I mean, we had, I think the guy leading it was Mark Liebler. I don't know if any of you know Mark Liebler. He's not an Anglo. There was Marcia Langton. Who were the other ones? Who was the guy that was from New Guinea or something? Was Thomas Mayo and all these people. This process went back a long way. This was Julia Gillard, I think, had started the ball rolling. And in all that time, there wasn't a single representative from the Anglo community. They didn't consult with any of us. Any of our advocates or leaders. Never even attempted to find any. We were here. Never rang me up. So this is the British Australian community. I'd urge you, if you get a chance, to join up. We've got a website which we're due to update soon. We're working on a new upgraded version. You can pop on there and pay. We're just $25 a year. We don't charge a lot of money, but the more people we have, the more power we have and the more we can do. So if any of you haven't joined already, I would encourage you to do so. If you're not following us on X, used to be Twitter, or YouTube or whatever, subscribe to that. We've been a little slack with videos because we're doing different things at the moment. We have a lot going on, but that's us. Now, just before I sign off, I'd just like to give a little talk, a little speech about the team that we have, because I'm one on the team. Like, I'm the president, but really and truthfully, the guys that we've got who, I'll just tell you, someone here who would want to remain nameless 3 weeks ago said to me, hey, CPAC's on in 3 weeks. Put on an event somewhere really close. We'll call it BAC-PAC, and we'll get some of the people across from CPAC, because I'll put it on Friday night, and those guys, they got nothing to do on Friday, they might come across. So we put this out to the team, and we've got a team of guys, young and old, who just went, boom, right, let's do it. And they just put this together. They are just amazing. I mean, I know everyone says this and it's all hype. Oh yeah, my team's amazing. These guys blow my socks off, okay? Because we all do things well. I mean, I have things I do well. I can write well, and there's lots of things I do really badly, okay? And we all have that. So if you have a team of people who are all on board and pushing in the same direction, it's just amazing. And the team that we have on the BAC is fantastic. And we're looking for more fantastic team members to join us. So if any of you want to get more involved and help, all we want is an attitude, really. What can you do? And everyone can do something. Everyone can hand out a leaflet or something like that. Everyone has some kind of a skill. Some of you might have fantastic skills. As long as the main thing is that the people in our organisation are on board with us and want to push in the same direction. What we don't want are people who say, oh, well, I think that we should go this way. I'm going to try and drag everyone this way. Because when you start doing that, I'd sooner have 10 people pushing in the same direction than 100 people all pulling in different directions. So if any of you like what we do and you think that we're doing the right thing and a good thing and it's worthwhile, please join us, get in contact and join the team, because they're amazing. Thank you very much.